Nikola Tesla, back in 1891, put forward papers and drawings and demonstrated how high frequencies or scalar energies or various forms of electricity could be used for healing purposes. Tesla had noticed in his lab that many of his assistants who were around these very high voltages, high frequencies, were getting cured of pretty much any disease they happened to have. And he realized, after being victim of a street accident in 1891, where he was quite severely injured apparently, that he decided to use high frequencies to heal himself. He developed machines. One was the ozone generator that he developed. Ozone generators have been around for perhaps 100 years prior to Tesla, but the current design we use today is basically still Tesla's design. Then he, again in 1891, he proposed the idea of diathermy, and he worked with a Mr. D'Arsonval, and this is basically a Tesla D'Arsonval device that you're looking at right now. It works on frequencies. You can change the frequencies and the power using these spark gap generators, and if I switch it on, you'll see what happens. At this point, the chances are that the internet's been knocked out by the power of this. I'll just turn it off. And these were in every hospital in the world. These have been written out of history. There are, it's very hard to find an original Rife machine. You've got to be the King of England or somebody. But these Tesla devices can be found. I have all these instruments checked very carefully by experts to make sure they're safe. And when we took it apart, the inside of this was incredible. The workmanship, the quality is amazing. I mean, if somebody told me this is going to be still working in 500 years' time, I could easily believe it. I've had to change wiring in some cases because I had a couple of cables that literally crumbled to dust in my hands. But as far as the internals, all the working materials, this machine was made to last. I mean, this was in the days where this would have been a very, very expensive device in its day. Tesla coils inside, and the quality is stupendous. I'll have to take it apart at some time again and photograph it, which I should have done last time. And diathermy had two uses. One that's still used today in the hospitals by surgeons, which is for surgery. If you get the sharpest scalpel, well, the patient's still going to bleed. But if you use high frequency to do the cut, there's no bleeding, there's instant cauterization. So while the therapeutic side of these instruments has been written out of history, they couldn't shut the surgeons up because the surgeons weren't going to give up this technology. So 1843, I think it was, that the first electrotherapy department at a hospital, Guy's Hospital in London, was formed, and by the time this device was made, this is an early 30s device, there were electrotherapy departments in every hospital in the world, and of course they used these instruments because they didn't need drugs, they didn't need radiation of a dangerous type. This is safe radiation using radio waves, scalar energy, and they were healing everything. I can show you various books from my library if you ever come round, and I can show you the old books on the subject, because there are textbooks on how to use these things, and they were using them for pretty much every single disease you could think of. But of course, people think that disease is a thing. Actually, disease is not a thing, it's a lack of a thing. Dis-ease is a lack of ease. So these machines put ease back into your body, so pains went away, inflammation went down, the fibrosis level would go down, tumours would disappear. Not that they were very common at that point. They were still eating relatively well when this machine was built. It was after the Second World War, really, when processed foods started essentially killing everybody, and then they developed drugs to overcome the damage from the food, and they started killing everybody too. And we have the epidemic of illness that we have now, which really, this lack of ease is toxic poisoning from the food and the air and the water perhaps, and lack of nutrition. Simple nutrition means that you regain ease, because previous what were seen as health problems, well, if you fix your health with nutrition and removing the toxicity, repairing any physical accident damage, then you can get well. So these machines were taken out of hospitals worldwide by the whole Rockefeller pharmaceutical cartel, which ended up paying huge salaries and lots of money to the medical universities, the medical schools, to stop teaching electrotherapy, to stop teaching herbs and herbalism, to stop teaching any alternative view from acupuncture to homeopathy. In England there were many homeopathic hospitals in England, and they got written out, closed down in general, because you couldn't make money with a machine like this that's never going to go wrong and has no replaceable parts. The original tungsten spark gaps, where the sparks are flying to and from, are still the original ones from when it was built. They probably never deteriorate, never break down, because the quality of the materials was the best. So of course this isn't the only Tesla derived machine. So here's another device, again invented by Tesla in 1891. The first working examples, I understand, were shown at the Chicago World's Fair in 1893, and I have researched in huge depth these devices, and they are immensely effective,